p.m. Minutes from October 27th. Does anybody see corrections, edits, comments, questions?
I did. I was gonna say, when did you?
I wasn't here to make the motion to adjourn.
I'm not sure how I did that, but.
Tell
Okay,
me.
but then I'm fine with it.
Does anyone recall who made the motion to adjourn?
Say I did.
Okay, I'm down for second, so I can't take credit for it.
Just,
I think it was you.
I think Eric carried.
I think it was too. And technically, we adjourned and went into, does it need to say that, like we adjourned and went into executive session? Does it have to say?
Does that need to be
Just check,
reflected in
no,
the
it's fine, just change it to,
Yeah, it just needs to be clear.
yeah.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to accept the amended minutes.
Amended minutes. That's a mouthful. I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to accept the minutes as amended. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So you abstain, did you vote or
You
no?
can still vote on it. I voted on it. And I made the motion.
Okay,
You're good.
did you vote or no?
I'll vote yea.
Okay, then we were
I didn't want to be illegal.
7-0.
Get that, Rebecca?
Got it.
Wendy, would you send those down to Steve,
Yep.
please? Any public participation this evening? Nope. Financial report. Steve, anything we need to call attention to?
The only thing, it's, I believe it's handwritten on there. The city ARPA contribution is reflected on there now, so that's good.
And this is the money that paid for the water and sewer?
Yeah.
So did we foot the expense for that then? I guess my understanding from back when that happened was that, like, the way I recall that being presented was it wasn't going to parks, it was just, it was a water line improvement that happened to benefit the park.
Well, I mean, ultimately still, the money that moved to the parks to pay for that improvement.
So I guess what I'm asking, did the parks already incur that expense, or is that an expense yet to be?
No,
added
it's
to?
already happened, I believe.
Yeah.
So that had already been removed from our balance, and now this is added in, so this is in addition to the balance.
Correct.
That's very
That's
good.
good.
That's the best answer possible. Anything else notable? On this topic, I'm hopeful with the passage of the marijuana amendment the other day that will generate additional tax revenue for us long term and continue to benefit the park. Not yet reflected in the financial report, but hopefully in years in the future it will. Any other questions, comments? Need a minute? Let's look to see people looking through it. We'll give them a minute.
Do you know, like on the video on the last page, does that include the phase 2
No.
design in that? No, okay. I was just curious if we'd already incurred that or not.
Nope, I believe phase two is yet to be.
Anything else? Lots of number crunching still going on this side. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. If anybody comes up with something else, we'll circle back. Steve, Superintendent, Board, ARPA grants.
Oh, just to report on, how the council voted last week on what the city's gonna go for on the ARPA grant. Come to find out that ultimately, it's a 50-50 match, so we only had roughly $1 million to match the other $1 million, so ultimately we had to cut some of the projects out. It was a lengthy discussion about either leaving the playgrounds in or going with sidewalk amenities. So ultimately, the council voted to go with the sidewalk amenities, knowing that, ultimately, Parks has some funding to move forward with playgrounds. So that was, I believe, why they opted to just let us. Yes.
That's not exactly the whole reason.
Okay.
I'd like for them to know the whole reason, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reason is the better chance of getting the ARPA grant is because we already have, sidewalks that are coming from on Harris on down to 4th Street. So that's why adding sidewalks on Harris to adjacent that would be a continuation of what we already have, which is a better chance of us getting that ARPA grant.
More connectivity instead of fragmented.
Yes, that's why we did that, because we had 3 council people that, I was one of them, that wanted playground. But then when we realized that there's a better chance of getting the ARPA grant, and that's when I kept looking at him and going, do you guys have any money for this? Because we really needed it in recreation really bad. And he, bless his heart, he was like, yeah, well, maybe. And so we opted for that, and then a couple of us changed to the sidewalks so that we have a better chance of getting it. That's why that happened. Thank you, Steve, for letting me clear.
Thank you.
And that's really the only discussion I have on that.
Okay. All right, moving on to unfinished business, the parks bylaws. I've been out of town for a week and just got the first draft to Robbie and Josh about 1 o'clock this morning. So we have not had a chance to go through and revise that to come up with a consensus to bring back to the full group. So we can expect that at the next meeting. And we'll continue to move forward on that and bring something back next meeting. New business, is there anything? All right, moving on to attention items. Steve, I'll turn it over to you. Looks like I've got a plan.
Well, and this is definitely up for discussion, but this is kind of the way I see us handling these action items, and sorry, I just laminated some sheets, but in my mind, the LWCF grant, phase 2 is probably our next. I look at it like level 1, top tier, these are the things that we need to address, probably most critical items, level 2, level 3, and we can move it around however we want to do it. I would like to get some kind of instruction on direction for the LWCF grant, like at this meeting, if at all possible. Budget for long and short-term projects, I feel like it's probably number 2, because we can't do any of these without the money. And how we're going to deal with managing the aquatic center and managing the new park. So this we have have a pretty good idea of what we're gonna do. We got our request for proposals ready to go, and it'll be advertised next week. So we're gonna bid it again and see what comes back. There's some discussion on this, what we wanna do. I know we've looked at, we can put that out for bid as well. There's some software packages I've looked at, that we could do. If we wanna try to do it in-house ourselves, Active Network, Rec Deck, what? Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I'm not saying that we don't really have the staff to really do it in-house, but I don't know if we can afford to. I don't know. What do you guys think as far as that goes? Putting it out for bid and seeing what happens, but we don't have a lot of time. So I almost think for this next season, we're almost, by the time we do the bid specs, put it out for bid, advertise it for the amount of time necessary, get it back, have you guys review it, and it has to go to council. By then it's, spring, and where you need to be going, so.
If we could back up just a minute, I would personally switch the number 1 and 2 there on the level 1. 'Cause the budget status for long and short term also affects just how in depth we go with that 2021.
Right. You're right though, because, we can't do anything without funding.
Right now, I think it's got a $200,000 placeholder in there for playground, which, it's just the placeholder right now.
Right.
So budget availability dictates whether that has to get dropped or if we can expand or what.
And like I said, these are all just where I kind of see them as far as priority goes. On level 2, I know when we did our punch list walkthrough the other day, Neil, we were both pretty overwhelmed about the amount of ground we're gonna have to take care of with basically Neil and myself and the Lanny Wake, and that's all we really have, so. I don't know how we wanna go about doing this. We wanna break it down per topic and talk a little bit more. That might be our best.
Well, on that topic, going back to like our long-term plans from a couple of years ago,
Right.
And anybody correct me if I'm incorrect on my memory, but I think that the intention was once the new park came online, we would have to expand staff to accommodate. So hopefully it wouldn't be just you and Neil and Lanny. We'd be able to expand as needed, especially with seasonal staff.
Here is what Carmen put together for review.
I think when you look at the staffing too, even if we could, when we do hire that, you could hire somebody to possibly work on the management side of the park too, along with other duties, maybe, I don't know.
Well, the manager side could also turn into, that's who's running the scheduling and
Right.
the teams and the tournaments or
Right.
if it turns into.
And then they could go help with, maintenance and stuff.
Right.
Possibly.
Steve, how much of your time right now is dedicated to managing these big projects that in theory will slow down over time? Like a significant chunk, just ballpark.
I know when we were running the ball complex before we sold to the school district, and it was completely different then, but I know, we're gonna spend a lot of time prepping for games, and that's not gonna change. Scheduling, and
Hopefully field prep will be a daily occurrence.
well, right, and it will be. It was then, and it definitely will be now. So, ideally, I think we need to have one person at that facility every day.
Just pretty much
a dedicated staff to that person. Actually, Mitch Colson wants to do that. He's a good fit. He's been with us for, 8, 9 years now. he's a high school coach, and he would, obviously, he doesn't want to do it full-time, but in the summer months, he'd be a great option to have there, just as a,
That would
On a
just be
part-time
after.
basis or a seasonal basis?
well,
Is that
seasonal
what you're
basis,
thinking?
for
Like a
sure,
seasonal
yeah. You know, that's something he's definitely had interest in and wants to do it, and he's a baseball guy, and so,
Teacher,
he is a teacher.
that's what I thought,
Yeah.
yeah.
Teacher and coach? or-
And,
Yeah.
he'd be a good one to have there,
Mhm.
you know, and.
We still have to cover the first couple months of the season before school's out.
Right. I think I could take care of, if we bought a software pack that could facilitate a lot of the scheduling and the umbrella of it, all of it, outside of our current website, it just isn't adequate for those type of, it's just not set up for recreation, so.
Yeah, to me, that's a given. If we do it in-house, we have to have an automated
Yeah.
scheduling system and all of that.
So-
What's a rough idea of the cost of software, just a general?
that-
Are we don't, you don't
I
have
don't
it
know
on there
yet.
for you? Okay.
Because, you know, when I started looking into, I do know our city manager would like us to bid it to maybe somebody like Midwest Pool Management or somebody like that. I just don't know if we can afford that,
Yeah,
long term. I don't,
without seeing a comparison of costs,
Right.
my assumption would be hiring staff ourselves would likely be a cheaper option. And that would be, all other things being equal, that would probably be my preference.
right.
Yeah, at least we get our feet wet at this point.
And the reality is, I don't know if we have time.
Right.
For this coming season, for this spring, I don't think we have time to go through the whole bid process to make that happen.
Right.
I know it's November, but spring will be here before you know it, and I think really, my recommendation is to go with the best software pack we can get, and I think I can take the time to set up leagues and things like that, at least through the spring, and that'll give us time to maybe bid it for the fall season and go that route. I don't think a software pack, I have all three, I guess, so ActiveNet wants to do a demo, RecDeck or Desk wants to do a demo, so, I don't know, start demoing, see if it fits our needs. I do know the city is switching to a different provider for the credit card use. We still might have to go separate from that just because of the amount of credit card. If we start running tournaments and things like that and rec level, we're gonna have a lot of people signing up and paying and,
So through this, it sounds like you're envisioning the city running leagues and hosting tournaments as opposed to just providing the fields, or what's your thoughts there?
I think that's,
Ideally,
without having a third entity helping us manage that, then that's basically our only choice. Now, I do know the YMCA is still gonna wanna use up some of our facility space. I think that's fine. I think they're more in the market of just rec levels, smaller scale stuff. I think any tournament we have outside of their tournament is gonna be competitive level. There is a need in this town for competitive level softball, baseball practices, and even leagues.
That can turn into leagues
Oh.
if they start having practices here.
Oh,
and
for
then
sure.
they can
Right.
And I think
turn it into a league.
we could host, we could set up our own, at least one or two tournaments in the summer, just to get us going. And see if we can do it, kinda get our feet wet with that, and,
So I brought it up last meeting. I coach 8U girls t-ball, softball through Platte Valley League, and we're part of the Cameron Ball Association. We've practiced and played down at the Elks for the past few years, and as of last year, it was 8 teams on one field,
right.
and that was absolute max capacity on the one field. And Brian had already reached out this fall looking for what the city's plans are moving forward, if we're gonna do leagues in-house, or if the Cameron Ball Association needs to stay in existence kind of as a transition for the next year. That might be a good option, is for this first year, basically for us to host the fields and let outside groups manage the leagues on the fields, and then use this first year as a transition to get into, hopefully, the city handling everything internally next year. And Bickford was on board with that, for running it, the Cameron Mall Association again next year, this coming year.
That's just softball.
No, softball and baseball.
Up to what age?
I don't know. I know there's 11 teams. I don't recall if there's older.
Yeah, I think I talked to him, but it hasn't been real recently.
This was 2 weeks ago, 3
Okay.
weeks ago.
Yeah, 'cause I think it was this summer, and he was kind of asking me the same thing, because I think he was trying to get away from the
He would-
Cameron Ball. So
He would like to transition out of that. He would
Right.
like to see the city take it over, which it sounds like is the direction you would like to go. Also, it's the direction I would like to go.
Right.
But just looking at practicality of, there's already these other associations, leagues in play. I mean, it'd be the same type of thing as the Y. They are part of their own league, and they would.
Right. Same with
Preserve the
youth
fields.
football and cheer
Same as the
and
soccer,
youth
same as
soccer
everything,
club.
yeah.
But I do want to get to where we have a better format of how we divvy up space and contract with these people. I'm not
Agreed.
a real fan of the way because we've let the Y have it for free, because years and years ago, they took over the rec programming. Well, I feel like at this stage, it's time to, if we're gonna allow people to use the fields, other entities, we treat everybody the same.
Right. Agreed.
I agree.
Here moving forward.
Which is why I think it needs to be, then it needs to be run by us, or not us, but you. That's the staff.
Important distinction.
I don't get a check like that. No, that's why I think it needs to be run by either a complete separate management company,
Right.
or the city staff needs to have the program. And that doesn't mean that Brian can't come up and give you names in every other league that's around here, and
But you'd have to have like a deadline, I guess, for everybody to submit everything. Hey, here's
And I
your
think that's
deadline.
what some of
this
this
is where we're at, this is where
Right.
we're going.
rec desk
Go forward.
and that's how it all sets up, where you can sign up online. And what we can't do is depend on city hall staff to take monies in and deal with that. Whatever we do
Right.
has to be
Same ones.
pretty much independent of city hall staff, because city hall doesn't have the staff either, and
Yeah, I think any additional staffing to handle this needs to come from us.
right.
Expanding.
So,
Which Mitchell then is a good
As
what
long-
I
as long as
understand,
we
what
can
I'm
do the
hearing
first couple months.
is going into this spring, we're gonna try to do it ourselves and then bid out maybe for the fall or the next year, an outside group. See how it goes. I mean, if we start in on this and we're doing well and we're not overwhelmed and we're doing a good job and it's not
not too much
not a
for
big,
everybody.
yeah,
Yes, I
then we
would-
just continue on.
I'd suggest a change to that. This spring, we only have the fields, we don't do the actual programming, and then hopefully transition into handling the programming internally.
Okay.
And then if we need to go from that step on to an outside management company.
Okay.
No, I think we need to do it the other way.
But
Well-
what are you losing if we have, if Steve does it all, and versus having
Yeah.
Cameron Group, softball, whatever it is, ball association?
I mean, if, Steve, if you think that you can take it on and run all the leagues this year, then by all means, I'm thinking it would be just cleaner, simpler for everyone to not try to do that the first year.
Here's what you run into, at least what we ran into at Park Valley. And when the YMCA was running the rec programming there, they took over the concession stand, and it was basically an extension of the YMCA, is what it felt like.
Yeah.
We couldn't let anybody else use the fields. Basically, all the scheduling was still set up through the city on our website, but with rainouts and things like that, they pretty much took all the field space.
And that's something that I have heard repeatedly.
Right,
since
yeah,
I've been
and-
here.
And there was some validity to it, but the bottom line is, with this complex, I don't want everybody to have just access to the concession stand and do this thing, well, this weekend, we're having a tournament, so move all your stuff out. And, so there's a concession stand component of it, that's a whole nother thing we need to discuss. But just various leagues trying to compete over the same space. And that's where you kind of start running into issues. As long as we have a good contract in place, we had a contract in place, but something that's
I think it
tailored
needs
to, yeah, it needs updated and to, okay, this is your league, these are the dates you want to use, whatever field, that's fine, you pay for that space, and then maybe we just, I was talking to city staff just this week about how would we be better off to handle all the concession items ourselves. Hire some seasonal staff to just handle, and I actually thought about, well, the same thing at the aquatic center, do we take care of the concessions ourselves and at the new fields? I don't know, I don't have the,
What's
Sabrina
the-
does that with the concession stand, the city at the ball fields, the city runs the fields, the city has the staff at the concession stand,
Mhm.
so it's, I mean,
it's doable, I feel like we would have a lot better idea of
of what is
what's really
happening.
happening
Yes,
with
yes.
concession items and,
What's the opportunity for, like, a partnership with Rotary, for example, or any other community organization, and just have a contract that they are the concessions people? I would like that as opposed to just opening it up for every team to.
well, no, I definitely don't think we do that, I think that is,
I think
that
it
was
needs
a
to be
disaster,
seasonal.
and that was
I think
just a
it needs to be
partnership.
seasonal staff.
Yeah.
That was a
And
partnership
whether
with
they
the
mow
Y
and they
and the
do it at
school
night
district.
Or on weekends or vice versa,
Mhm.
we'll just split the staff.
As long as we can, just with staffing problems across the board everywhere, as long as we can get people to reliably show up.
Well,
It's
that-
no different than trying to get volunteers though.
Right,
Those
right.
groups would
I
face-
don't
They're not
run
gonna
into that
commit
either
to
way.
it because they can't get it.
Right.
I honestly just think we'd be better off to try to do it in-house. I know that sounds, I don't know how we're really gonna be able to do it in-house, but you get a Rotary or whoever, that they're gonna have a hard time getting people to do it.
I just think it's fair, how we're gonna rent them out, how we're gonna run the concession stand, how we're gonna staff, get everybody going, I just think it needs to stay.
I think it needs to be us and then we set
Us
the
grounded.
groundwork going forward that we are in control of it.
Hey, how about we get someone
Because
to help us
if
with
you
this
let this
side
group
of
come
it,
in
this
one
side of
year,
it.
then
Right.
the next year they're gonna think, oh, well, I had it last year, I can do it again this
You
year.
need to
and
start
then-
it off the way you're gonna keep it, I
Exactly.
think.
Right.
And
You
then
know,
we
you
don't
said
have
first
to
you
go
start it
down
off one
that.
way and then
Yes.
change it.
Which is
people
how
are
we got in
gonna-
the boat we were in,
Yeah.
with everything was free
Right.
for so long.
So if you think you can handle as far as scheduling,
I
With
think I
the
can handle the
software.
rec scheduling component of it. I don't know about
It's
the
the
Yeah.
staff
concession
part.
stand
we've got-
component of it is a whole nother thing, and I just think that's,
but maybe that's something that Mitch oversees if we can get him some
right, getting some.
high school students or.
But keep
summer
in mind,
college
then
kids
our
or
staff is
whatever it
gonna explode with seasonals, because if we're running leagues, then we have to hire officials, we have to train officials, we have to hire concession workers and train those folks, and, it's,
In theory, league fees should be set up to cover those costs.
yeah,
In theory.
and
I
it's,
think
I think we could,
almost-
I definitely think we could set our fees to cover,
To pay the
to
umpires.
pay the umps.
I mean,
and
the ball association
Yeah.
has done that for years.
that
I
shouldn't
think
be a
people
problem.
expect that, when you pay to get into the tournament, and then you pay to get in,
Mhm.
as a team, you pay to get into the tournament, and then as an individual, you have to pay to
Even-
attend the tournament.
So
I mean,
when
there's.
you do that, like with
fees
refs and stuff, like say if you hire like high schoolers, do you have to like get them certified? Do you
No,
have to
we,
do?
we, yes, we would have a training component, but that would be all in-house kind of thing, depending on the,
Depending on the league.
Yeah.
Depending on, I
The
was gonna
tournament.
say,
the tournament.
The
Now,
tournament
if it
itself.
was, U888 tournament, we'd probably be better to
We-
to
we
hire
better
like
hire
commission.
someone,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
well, I'm
We-
just
we
do
would.
something
making sure you can still hire like high school
Yeah.
kids or whatever.
Yeah. If you're just doing rec leagues
Seasonal
like
stuff.
AU and all those, just
The
rec
way-
leagues, high school kids would be.
The way I see it is, we would hire like a Mitch Colson who's shown interest for this. Say, hey, here are 6, 8, 10 kids, seasonal guys. They're coming in the afternoon, they prep the fields, mow the grass, get everything ready. Then those same kids stick around, they sell concessions, they ump the games.
That's exactly what I
They,
was just
they
thinking.
just, that's their baby, that complex. So, and you have Mitch floating around, being supervision, taking care of all the logistics of that whole thing. Might be our best
And he's
route
scheduling them.
That may be
He's
our best approach
doing
for
that.
now.
for this
Not
season,
knowing
yes.
what
I don't know if
we're gonna
that's long-term, but with the amount of time we have to kind of ready ourselves, that might be our best route.
So you think it's reasonable to pull that off?
I think it's reasonable to pull that off.
Very good.
But, I mean, I have spoke to Mitch about this, but not like officially spoke to him about it.
So that brings in, like, our first game, is May 1st. So that, there's a few weeks there, or I think some of the other leagues might actually start middle of
Right.
April, and, I mean, soccer's well before that,
Where do you guys play now?
at the Elks.
You play out the Elks and practice there too?
Yeah, there's 8 teams, and it's, like I said, there is absolutely no expanding. And if we're able to have open signups, you know, right now, we're completely limited by field capacity. And I would expect, you know, we have 2 8U girls teams. Stewartsville had 7.
Wow. Dang.
So, you know, there is certainly the numbers in Cameron to have significantly larger leagues.
Right, well, and I have the high school, when we did our walkthrough, I sent some pictures to the ADs, high school ADs, and Coach Stover was already like, how many softball fields can we have? I'm like, really, we can have 5, I mean, high school level softball fields. And that's the advantage of using those 2 practice fields with temporary fencing is, they can be, yeah, we can, the smaller of the 2 is pretty much just gonna be softball, because we can't extend it.
Or
further.
field
Right.
baseball.
Yeah, but I mean, essentially, for a high school level, we could have 2 full-size baseball fields or 5 high school softball fields.
Yeah,
Really easy. So,
she's definitely someone to
Oh,
talk
yeah,
to
she-
about getting leagues in and tournaments and knowing who to.
but once again, she wants to know,
Oh,
what the structure's
Oh,
gonna be.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are we gonna have to pay, or, there's, and that's why I feel like we set the precedent now that
Yep.
everyone
pays.
pays.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's
Yep.
same rules for everybody.
Yep, it has
Whether
to
you're the
be.
school district, whether you're the YMCA, whether you're youth
My
football,
kid, yeah.
right, I mean,
Absolutely.
everything is that, and that way, we're not picking and choosing. And that being said, maybe it's time we look at rewriting the YMCA contract.
Yeah, and I think all of that needs to be restructured. Do we have any, so you were saying the school has interest, is that for actual school sports, or is that?
That was
summer
just for
leagues, or-
tournaments,
Okay.
but,
Do we have any idea what the school's plans are at Park Valley long-term?
not really, I've heard different rumors, but I don't know.
I've asked multiple people, and nobody that knows anything concrete.
Mhm.
I might reach out and see if I can get a little bit firmer plans
Yeah,
from
I mean,
somebody. Because what happens there, will affect how many teams we have in our complex. Like, let's just say, in theory, next year they tear those out and put in new ones, then, and they miss a season, that I would guarantee we would expect for them to play on our fields.
Right. And if it was some strange occurrence like that, like where they were under construction, maybe we'd work out some sort of deal, since, I mean, they have let the YMCA use those fields for, while all these were under construction. I don't know, but that would be a discussion for when, if that happens, but.
Yeah, I think that's a worthwhile topic to get started, just to have visibility of some of their long-term plans and how it may play into ours. So I can reach out and ask a few questions, see if I can find who has answers, if anybody.
If you guys don't mind, can we look at the LWCF grant information there in front of you?
Yep.
Which,
Where's
it
the-
should be 3 different, the 3-page together price breakdown.
Like
and
the
then
Cameron Community Park off
Yeah,
the
the-
thing?
option A, B, and C. I just know this is the grant that we're already a year into, and we haven't really done anything on it. And it's what is it, $295,000?
I don't remember if this was the 295 or if the first one was
I-
295.
I think it was this. But,
Yes, it is.
when we first were looking at this, we didn't have the pickleball component to it. So obviously it has
So with, do I remember correctly from a couple meetings ago, like for any of these, it'll obviously be somewhat different, but in general, these are about 1.3 after adding in the pickleball,
It's on that sheet.
the sheet.
The
Cameron, do you
price
have any
breakdown.
This one.
There's three options.
Option A, option B, option C, which I'm assuming goes with the fixtures, option A,
Yeah,
option
yeah,
B,
yeah.
option C.
No, I think the one that went with the master plan or the plan A is the least expensive of the three.
Yeah, it is the least expensive one. Nice.
The big difference.
So my initial general thought is we should not overspend on an existing grant and instead should roll as much as possible into a next grant to get as much free government money as we possibly can and stretch our dollars as far as possible.
Well, this one says we have to have year-round restrooms and
And
recreate
And two shelter
two shelter
houses.
I think that's it,
And
right?
that's really it.
That's the,
That's
that's the
what's
bulk of it.
spoken in the grant. yes.
Well, and I know the Briggs donated money for pickleball, and that's why,
I was just gonna.
that was, well, that's one reason we kind of bumped up that pickleball component to this, but the plans that I have the pickleball clear up on the hill off of the 8th Street.
The southwest corner.
Yeah, the southwest corner, and I don't know when that's ever gonna really be able to be developed. I mean,
I mean, if we bring it back down to the,
yeah, it needs to move.
So Al, you and Jack donated 20 or 25 towards pickleball? 20 towards pickleball. When we talked earlier in the year, you guys were comfortable with using the pickleball as part of a next phase. Is that still the case, to where like you're not pushing that it needs to be in this one if it makes sense to do it in the next phase? Okay.
where's the
With
restroom?
these three updates, what are the associated, like, is there associated updates in overall plans? Like, how does making these changes change the long-term plan elsewhere on the park? Like with that southwest corner, like, is that still,
I would think we just don't develop that southwest corner for a while. I mean,
On all of these, like, I like the pickleball option south of that parking lot. Or, down by the soccer field, I guess, cause the north side, I think we were gonna try to leave that somewhat a level
The one
area
down
for
here.
another
The one
additional,
down here.
for an additional field possibly.
it looks like there's one of the full-size fields outlined on the option B drawing. That was, the next question is, how much space is available up there? And there's also, over to the east side, on the east ridge, that got flattened more than originally was anticipated, so there's more room over there for soccer field layouts.
I think we would still have enough room north and west of this. If you look at the, kind of the blue highlighted, I mean, I kind of went over the road a little bit to the east there, but that's kind of the, more or less the footprint of what this would be.
Even like that flat area up there, like I saw down at that, there's a new sports facility going in down off 152.
There.
Have you seen that?
Yeah,
Like,
awesome.
I mean, they even have like smaller fields
Uh-huh.
that are like turf and stuff, but like for like 8U or 10U, like, they don't have just full-size fields, something more usable for,
Is it more futsal, soccer fields that you're talking?
I don't know, what's that?
I'm not sure, there's a smaller field soccer, basically.
Yeah, like just different sizes, yeah.
My brother lives real close to that, he says it's full constantly,
Yeah,
that facility.
but that could be an option up there to the north too, not necessarily a full-size field.
So kind of what I would like to have happen is for us to kind of choose one of these. I talked to Larry today, and I mean, we need to start the bid process, and if you choose one and remove the pickleball component completely, and just for now, or maybe go back to the original design that they put together.
On that, like, cause I see like picnic shelters in there, they're like 300,000.
This is all probably a little bit inflated.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like 150,000 for
I'm
a
I'm still hoping
shelter
that
house.
the year-round restroom we
Okay.
can get for under $450,000, but I don't know, I don't know.
Okay.
But this is probably worst case scenario, would be my guess.
For myself, I'll need some time to digest and look at the numbers, and I'll wanna overlay and see
Does
how
he
the
have,
different layouts fit myself. Like I don't know that I'm personally comfortable choosing one right now.
Okay, so on this, let's put a priority when we will be able to vote on this topic. I'd say by the next meeting, we need to be able to go to Vario and say, this is what we want, let's put it out for bid. Because this board has had this information in front of you for the last 4 meetings, and we're not any further along than we were then. So, and once we get past this 2-year window and it's not done, I guess we won't have to worry about the $295,000 we just let slip through our hands, because we won't.
do they have any better plans than this, like the visuals we had, like for the concession
I'm sure
and
they
stuff?
do, but we need to make some kind of commitment with them. Right now, I mean, I had to go back and redo the RFQs just to even have them be able to be part of the grant process. That never happened. So that's why we just got that done, because I don't know why that didn't happen, but it didn't happen. And Patty Reed down at DNR was like, how come we don't have the request for qualifications from the design folks? Well, I don't know why. That just didn't happen. And, well, we need that, or you don't qualify for this grant.
Yeah, we need to figure, I mean, even if we just do the restroom and the shelter houses for now, we need to get,
We gotta get on it. I don't wanna lose the money.
we should have already got it done, basically.
Well, through the main body of this project, there was a lot of situations where, I mean, it was pretty much exactly like this. This is the first time we've seen the financial breakdown of all of this. And
No,
it's-
that was in your packet 2 meetings ago.
Okay, well, I guess I didn't see it. But it very much feels like, here it is, digest it and make a decision.
Yeah, we've had this before.
I mean, you
Yeah,
guys are
we were
aware
planning all
that
this.
we had a plan for the second phase of the
Yes.
LWCF, right?
Yes, we have, yeah, we have,
So
we've
you've known
seen all
since-
these numbers,
Okay.
we've seen all this,
Yeah, I've seen these phases.
it just kept getting pushed to the side.
Yeah, I did get kind of sidetracked.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking too, like, well, maybe Virio's gonna come and kind of show us a plan.
And I'm sure they would be able to do that.
You know, like a
You know,
visual kind of thing, I guess. That's kind of what I was hoping
It
would
would be nice
happen.
to merge a couple of these together, because I like parts of this one, and I like kind of parts of that one.
If I get Dario here at the next meeting,
Where we could go back to him and say, hey, can we put this and this together, and then
Yeah.
let's see that?
let's
That
plan,
would at least be moving.
Yeah.
would that be,
I think that would
something we
help,
could do?
When's our next one?
but we need to meet before, I mean, we don't meet in December, right?
No, we do need
Well, I think we
Second
can.
doing our-
Okay.
Work.
That's what I'm saying, it's like maybe a month away.
So that's.
December 8th is our,
December 8th.
Looking at all this stuff, right now, we have one meeting scheduled between now and January. So I think it's necessary to set more frequent meetings to get through this stuff in a timely manner, even if it's smaller committees doing it, something like that.
Or if you can get Virio up here before Thanksgiving even, maybe everybody can get together. I don't know.
does everybody want to be involved in, maybe we do get back to some subcommittees for some of these plans?
We can do subcommittees.
That's fine.
Yeah,
You can
it
get
would
3 or
be
4 of
quicker
us
and
here,
easier.
it'd be a lot quicker, yeah.
Right.
So if you could get a subcommittee together and get Muriel up here next week, then we
Right.
can make a decision by.
We would have to go with 4 or less.
Correct.
Yeah.
So is there anybody who wants to be, I assume Matt, you want to be on that?
Yeah, I would like to.
I would be on it.
They've been on
I mean,
the work
there's,
stuff, I was on the school.
Right.
I mean, we can have more than 4, it just has to be
Well,
posted is all.
Once we have more than 4, it has to, I guess,
I mean,
it would be an official meeting at that
Yeah,
point.
I mean, I think the committee stuff has to be posted anyway too, doesn't it?
It does, it's not a quorum.
It's
so-
not a forum, so we
Just
don't.
don't vote on it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect any quorum level votes to be taken at any of those.
So you got Matt and Chris, who else? Wants to be on this committee?
I will.
Carrie,
Yeah.
Robbie, there's our 4.
There's 4.
Wait, I have 3.
Robbie, Carrie,
Okay,
Matt, and Chris.
got it.
Would anybody else like to? I don't wanna exclude somebody just for numbers reasons.
I trust you guys. I'll have a fun staying in eventually anyway.
I was gonna say, that's
I-
the whole point.
If we can't vote on it, you know,
Yeah, we can't do anything without anybody else.
Yeah,
Anybody
just
else?
give me the best option and
Yeah, and have Barry go in on that deal and.
they can just come and talk to you guys and then
Right.
you guys can decide what you
Right.
want and then
Get with
bring it back
Vero
to
to
us.
see when they're available
Right.
and then get with,
I like that plan better.
Okay.
That
Than
way,
just
maybe you can get
deciding
things done
tonight.
right.
before
How about,
Thanksgiving even,
Yeah.
or shortly after.
Matt, are you around next week?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
in town, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I guess I would think just set it for Thursdays unless otherwise,
That work for
unless otherwise
everybody?
changed, just.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll see if I
yeah,
can
do that.
get Steve and, or at least Larry up here, probably both of them. And that way we can hash through some of the details and then by that point, we can bring that information back to the next park board meeting
on the 8th.
on the 8th to vote.
If they come up with a concise idea
Mhm.
next week or have that together, will you send that prior?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then we can for sure study it and then be able to give you an answer on the 8th.
Okay.
So to be able to make an informed decision on that, we have to go to the budget status to know how much money we've got available to potentially use towards this. And I'm scheduled to sit down with Carmen this coming Wednesday and wrap my head around all of these numbers and get them to make sense in my own head.
Mhm. Well, it might be, I'll see if we can get Carmen at one of those meetings as well.
Okay, so to narrow that, just the broad budget status down a little bit, I think one thing we need to look at specifically is how much we need to hold back for staffing. You know, of either the chunk left over on the pool or ongoing revenue, you know, we need to, that's a very big number one we have to make sure is accounted for.
Right.
Is staffing needs, and then lump sum how much is available now, and then out of the original half-cent bonds, and then how much is available outside of that, like with the overage on the half-cent over the past 2 years.
Do we want to create a finance subcommittee to deal with it?
I feel like that plays so closely into everything else, I don't know if that can be separated.
Can you tell me where we are now?
Where we are with,
With what we have in place right now? That's on this sheet that she gave us.
for the
For
park
staffing?
construction?
No, for staffing.
That's.
Is the 2 green ones where we have that in place right now?
I'm not understanding the question, what's the question?
On this,
On this sheet, I
That-
wanna know
that-
what,
That right
We
now,
have
the
with
top
us
2
right
is all what we have. on
That's
it.
what we have right- that
That's
was
how
my
it's broken down.
this is what we
Yeah,
have.
the
and
top
then we
one is
have-
me and the second one is Neil. And actually off of that sheet, our seasonal, we don't even, that Lanny doesn't even make what's listed there.
On the seasonal,
Right.
okay.
So this, the season is a 40-hour-a-week assumption?
Well, it depends.
I mean,
If
just
it was a true seasonal where it was just summer months, yes. The way Lanny does it, he basically works for us year round, but we have to keep him.
he's a part-time.
Right, he's part-time, full-time, so legally we have to keep him under 30 hours a week. So he works year round, but he, you know.
I guess this park maintenance worker category, that is for a full-time employee, those numbers. There.
Right,
Okay.
and that's what it would cost, and that is the bare lowest step and grade in the city.
Right.
And I still don't know if we can afford to hire two. I mean, in my mind, we need two full-time employees, but I don't know. I don't know where the money's gonna come from, but.
We as a city are hiring two new,
Right.
and they estimated that as which I don't understand where they came up with this, but they estimated that as $120,000.
For the two?
Yes. And
About
that
what
includes, you know, loggers and.
That's about what that
That's, yeah.
figure is.
With insurance and everything, yeah.
So I would like by the end of the night for you guys to vote on allowing us to hire two full-time staff. Just go ahead on and vote, and Carmen's good at figuring out the money. Just kidding.
I should probably go to the next meeting.
She did put that together in hopes, I mean, she realizes, and all of the city staff realizes, we need, adding all this park ground, we gotta have
Somebody has to
staff.
take care of
We
it.
have to have staff.
And that's been the expectation
Right.
from the beginning.
And it's gonna be the expectation, but if we don't put logistics into it, or where is the money gonna come from? I mean, that's and I hope that we are smart with our finances when we schedule these tournaments and things like that, that yes, we do generate some revenue, but starting off right now, we have what we have, and that's, you know, what, for a long time, we really just had one full-time parks employee. And when Drew was here, 4% of his, basically 4% of his salary came from parks, and he probably did
A lot more of it.
60 to 70% of his job was parks. So that, you know, I don't know, but,
That was a good deal for us.
well, I mean,
Yeah,
really,
when you look at it that way, yeah.
But if it's managed well and it's taken care of well and you're drawing all these people to camera, I mean, it's gonna increase our revenue.
right, but what we don't wanna have is the polar opposite of that, and that's what happens to us a lot of times, is we'll build something new, but we don't have the finances or the staffing to keep it up to par, and then we just get hammered on social media about, why are the tennis courts in this shape, or it's even like the school district's tennis courts that aren't even ours that we get nailed on. And I feel like our staff, we do everything we can to keep everything looking good, but when you take that and, you know, up to now, we've had 30 to 40 acres of park ground total, and the new park alone is gonna be, you know, probably 60 acres of what we have to take care of, let alone the additional around it, so we have to figure out how to staff. And
Absolutely.
I would like to say a little bit, something like the seasonal help is great, but we could use some help like recruiting, because some years this year we had 3, but sometimes we get 1 kid. I mean, we just don't know, it's not consistent. And I mean, we try to know kids, hey, would you be interested in coming and helping? So if that's something, if you guys still have younger kids at school or something like that, like last year, I approached some of the football kids, is what I had, which worked great, but it also has a downside, is these kids have football schedules. So if I had to look back, I would say there was probably maybe 2 weeks out of the whole summer that I actually had the kids for a full 40-hour week. It was, they would come in, you know, at 10 o'clock and they would have to leave because this and that. But I also worked around that have a hard time finding jobs that'll work around that. So the guys I had were super excited. And I mean, when I did have them, they were great help. But I mean, we could use any help if you guys.
My wife teaches at the high school, she could.
That would be great.
Well, that's with
Yes.
Mitchell coming in, you know,
Yeah,
it's
and
him
Mitch would have some,
helping.
but I
Maybe
know
you
some
talk to
years,
counselors
where
too,
we're
talking
talking about,
out there too.
needing extra summertime help.
Yeah,
We're gonna need some help recruiting to get the kids
well, this is
interested
kind of
to,
maybe a
yeah,
perk of, it's new and just
to
hopefully.
come in and help, because like I
We'll
said.
put the word out when you need us to do that, and I think all of us can probably help with that for
Right.
sure. I mean,
What's
Really,
the-
the best way that I see it, Steve, from long here step in is, we like to do those applications like towards the end of April, 1st of May. So that way the kids' applications are in here, we get them scheduled, and then that way when they're done with school by the end of May, the kids can automatically step right in.
Yeah.
Right.
And that way we get a full, we
Can
can
they not
use.
work in the afternoons or weekends when schools and such?
Oh,
Some, is that not a thing?
Summer and other things and
We can
track
do
of ball or, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've worked around like a lot of the football guys with the new system here this year, they have a lot of stuff in the morning. So they would come in mid-morning, and then they would let me know later as the year got closer to football season, they would have to leave at like 4 to go to practice or something like that. So I just worked around that as best as I could, as
Yeah.
long as they let me know what their schedule was, so I could plan work.
Well, don't be
around.
afraid to go ask some girls
So-
to help you too. There's
Oh,
some-
I would take,
You know, there's some,
yeah.
I know some girls that would.
I actually was
that would
talking
show me
to
some
a
work
young
for
lady
you.
last summer, and I thought she was gonna come and help, but it ended up, she had some other obligations that come up and it didn't work out, but.
What's the closest collegiate Parks and Rec program? You know, Maryville has one, I know Mizzou has one, like that could be an option for somebody looking for an internship or
We've had intern requests, I guess, but, you know,
that could be an opportunity for a
especially now,
say,
running some rec stuff.
supervisor level seasonal,
Right.
in addition to Mitch.
Keep in mind too, though, every employee we hire now we have to do drug screens now for every employee. So that is what, $70 a person, 65.
How old do they have to be?
Well,
I thought it used to be 18, is it now 16?
well, we really depends on what we allow them to do. We've kind of gotten, our old insurance provider wanted them to be 18. I think our new insurance provider is okay with 16.
I mean, cause if they're gonna be marking fields and running concession stands and those kinds of things.
Well, we need them to be at least 16.
Yeah, okay.
Ideally 18, depending on what, you know, really.
Well, if they can be 16 to be a lifeguard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they're able to save somebody's life, they can mark a ball field.
Right. Well, it's more about the equipment is a concern. It's not so much marking fields, it's running mowers and.
Running the equipment,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's a great problem to have, because it's like creating so many opportunities for us. I mean, with the new pool,
Right.
once these kids see that new park, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'll work here, you know, and
Well, yeah.
so, but it's, you know, giving some jobs to some local people, which I, you know, kinda like hiring outside management and stuff, I'd prefer to keep it local. You know, somebody local, or create a job for somebody local than to hire it out. So, you know,
As long as we can pull that
as
off.
long as we can pull it off and do it that way.
Do we have enough staff at the pool this summer for lifeguards? Was there any staffing issues?
No, we really didn't towards the end, but I mean, that's.
Once sports practices started, but it sounds like that's a problem in the city, that's a universal problem in the fall.
Midwest Pool Management said at the start of the season, we had more staff than any of their other facilities in the Kansas City region anyway. But when all of your staff are student athletes, or the vast majority, once the practices start, a lot of them can, you know, so they were cut down to, that's why we ran into had to close half the facility down for an hour and then move to the other half, and
We need to coordinate with the coaches to offset practices so we can keep those kids busy 14 hours a day.
Good luck with that.
Because like I said, I had
That's
that
not-
issue, I mean, I had all my guys, it just happened to be gentlemen
And I think that that's gonna be pretty typical, is the ones that are interested in a parks type of job are also gonna be the ones that play sports, male or female.
Mhm.
That's true. So moving on. Go ahead, Matt. Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think this, this discussion, everything up there to me is interconnected. I think I would revisit the committee idea and make a suggestion that it just be a standing work session for all of the topics, as opposed to just setting this is, this committee for this topic, we just have a standing work session to work through. I mean, it's very easy to flow from one topic to another because the answers to one affect the problems to the other. So that would be my suggestion, is we just make it a standing work session for anybody that can attend, wants to attend. And then that work session gets summarized at the regular meetings for votes.
So, all right, so give me, when do we want to start the work session?
Thursdays,
Every Thursday.
Starting next Thursday.
yeah.
Anybody?
Other than Thanksgiving and Christmas.
I do have a son that's gonna be playing basketball on Thursday nights, and I am going to go to those, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah.
I didn't
Well,
know
it's
basketball was
already-
Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem,
Tuesdays,
I mean,
Thursdays, there's
that's the
not a
thing
lot
with,
on.
with doing weekly meetings is they're,
When does that start?
November 21st,
November 21st, so Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving week. And it
So
runs
next week
through-
would be fine though?
yeah.
Next
it
week.
runs
I mean, I
through
can miss a few,
February.
but I'm not.
We don't wanna
not-
take you away from it.
No,
Right,
I was
So,
Yeah.
Let's go for next Thursday, and then we'll,
go from there.
adjust day a week accordingly from there.
I know Wednesdays probably are, I don't know what, I know there's less sports on Wednesdays typically, I think. Usually it's Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday, Friday.
Would Wednesdays be preferable for everyone? Should
I
we just
prefer
set-
Wednesdays.
Yeah, I can get Wednesday.
I think that would be easier to, just cause that's the day they still don't try to do as many sports.
Should we just schedule it for Wednesdays and forget about the Thursdays idea?
Sure.
Alright,
But not next week. Because next week we're doing the meeting with,
Well, you're gonna tell Dario, they're gonna say I can be here on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever.
let me, well, let's leave next week kind of fluid until I coordinate with Furia.
Okay.
yeah.
And then I'll,
So then there won't be a limit on the number of people that can come to these, it doesn't just need to be 4?
Yeah, I would suggest we just post it as a work session. We understand that we're not going to have official votes at said work sessions. I mean, I guess we can if we need to.
I need to just kind of check with Shelley as far as, because we gotta post, we still have to post it, 24 hours in advance, even for work sessions, so.
Yeah.
I guess if it's just a standing thing, we can,
Work session, parks topics,
okay. Wednesdays at what time?
6. Anyone prefer a different time?
And if I can get them up here on next Wednesday, would that be better for everybody?
Wednesday, Thursday next week, doesn't matter.
Okay. I will be in touch on the subcommittee or work session meeting, really, we can just run.
Yeah.
If next Wednesday or Thursday works for whoever wants to be here, just be here. And then Wednesdays from then on until we get things lined out, I guess.
And hopefully, I mean, it shouldn't be a permanent thing. I mean,
No.
it can't be a permanent thing.
For the next 2 years.
It needs to be, once we clear this board, then we're able to back off,
Okay.
basically.
Well, I'm just gonna leave that in place and that'll be our board and unless some other entity wants to, let's city council, do you mind if we do
I'm
that?
not gonna do anything, I don't want city council to do it.
I don't know if there was any other items that, I do know, I would like to have some kind of resolution on the playground at Rec Park. Either we spend I know we budgeted $40,000 last year just for capital improvements out of the 8 cents that we didn't touch, and we did it again this year. just to have a marker in that place. I would at least, if we go with that $80,000 version, 70,000, whatever, at least we can get something back in there that is age appropriate. Because right now we really don't have anything age appropriate for the older kids. Both of those are part of that 40% buyback for Miracle, so that they would, we're not gonna get a better deal than that even if we went out to bid it. We can do it under what they would call sole vendor availability because of that 40% buyback. And if we got a vote, we could get moving on it tomorrow, because I don't know the lead time on playground equipment right now. It might be 2 years before they can actually install it.
What is the 70-some thousand?
The smaller, the bottom one up here.
I've had a few different people reach out with potential funding avenues for playground equipment. I think before we cut the check directly, it makes sense to check on those. Joel and Pratt sent me a grant opportunity.
Careful, Jimmy.
Did you get that on video? Like she sent me a grant opportunity. I've had a few people reach out, so I think it makes sense to at least feel those out a little bit before we cut a check directly.
Okay.
Is there?
Well, I have a question to that though. If we pull the trigger on like the $70-some thousand unit, could you use the grant to expand on what's there?
Probably, but all these are designed as a functional
As a
piece.
unit?
Right, as a unit.
I like the bigger one a lot better.
Well, and the bigger one's more like what was there before.
Right.
You know.
An extension to that is if we use the 40% discount on this, do we lose it for community park, for the big thing?
I think we would be better served to do the buyback program at Rec Park and then just bid. Because I know there's a lot of interest in other designs and other folks out at the new park. We would just bid that as one unit.
I would like to see more of a destination type
Right.
playground out
So,
there.
It's an easier sell for me too, not that I would have to sell them on it, but since we would actually be replacing the unit at the exact location, it's a pretty
Right.
easy, like, okay, we pulled off that Miracle piece, here's a new Miracle piece.
Yeah.
Is anyone leaning towards it's not a good idea to look at replacing that equipment?
No,
Need
but
something.
we need to put
We've
something.
got
something there.
Joe Loan's grant that's a fully ADA, that's more like what we have at Moose Station. This is ADA accessible and compliant, but it's not
A fully inclusive?
Yeah, it's not fully inclusive. So it has parts that are ADA accessible and you can get on, but it's not
Not like Moose.
Not
not
with
like
the
Moose
ramps
Station.
and.
And I believe that, because she's reached out to me about that grant opportunity as well, but it has to be something more like Moose
Not that we
Station.
wouldn't use it, but not for this
I mean, that-
particular.
It has to
If
be
that's, I haven't looked into it. If that's the case, that might be something we could incorporate
into the new one.
And
And I would rather
We'll need
see it
something out there for
Yeah.
sure.
get like a huge, fully inclusive destination type playground there would be
Absolutely.
better than, and then just put something back at Rec Park that was similar, up to date, ADA compliant.
Do we have the budget for this one, for the 127?
We ultimately, yeah, and we would have the budget still in the 8-cent sales tax, and not even touch the,
Did you say it's 45, 40?
well, I know we have 80,000 that we haven't touched out of that 8 cent. And I don't know, 3 years back, what we did with it. I do think we could go ahead and move with the 127,000 one, and that's installed, and if we wanted to go with the bigger two, we could.
That's kind of what was there, basically, right?
Right.
So going back to the master plan, there was basically the recommendation that there was too much going on at Rec Park. And That was part of an argument for we didn't need to replace it at the time.
Right.
But, let's see, I think it was right after the groundbreaking at the community park. After that, I went to lunch with Larry and Steve and asked them what their opinion was on replacing that. And their kind of consensus was, yes, equipment should be replaced, but not necessarily in the same spot. They were thinking it made more sense to rearrange and elaborate on the upper pad and then turn the lower pad just into open green space. Still get the equipment back, but alleviate a little bit of the congestion
I mean,
in there.
we could do that too, it's just gonna be more costly, and that's the only thing with putting it back in that same footprint. And I think they did a good job on the master plan, I just know that we've had enough community involvement that says, hey, we want it back.
We need this map, yeah.
And not that we couldn't, but we would have to remove what's there on the east one, on the up top one.
Yeah,
And it's probably due to be replaced anyway, but it's still functional, it still is usable, it's safe. I don't know, I mean.
You have an estimate on what the future lifespan is on that stuff? Like, can we expect to have to replace it in 2 years, 10 years?
Not what's there, no. What's there isn't, it's all structures that'll last, I mean.
Long-term stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if I shouldn't say ever have to replace it, but the wear item, like the two throw swings, the only thing we'd have to replace are the wear items we currently, like the seats, the chains, the hinges and the hangers and those kind of things. Everything else lasts. And the toddler set that's there, it's relatively new. I mean, we built it the summer before we put in new stations, so. And the other stuff we brought up to specs when we had to remove the composite piece. So my recommendation would still be just use that same footprint and know that we've got enough community involvement since we've removed it that we're doing the right thing.
And we've got a much nicer parking lot on the other side now.
Right.
To hopefully take a little bit of that congestion off of Park Road there.
Right. Well, and it, years down the line, if we do want to, in my mind, we'd almost be better off to leave the bigger structure closer to the restrooms and use that east playground area for green space.
That you look at,
to me, that
those
makes,
long term.
yeah, I think that makes more sense than the lower of those two. But
Or just swings or something.
yeah, right.
Something simple there, and more open, I don't know.
Horseshoes, tic-tac-toe.
There's horseshoes there, but they're not in very good shape.
That's right.
But I mean, I still think the idea was it was congested, but since that time, we've removed some of the components that were on the east side. And we know that the school district and lots of other folks want something back.
I was gonna say,
in
the
that
community's
footprint.
telling us we need we want it back, so we need to.
Yeah.
I would feel better about making a decision, not that it has to happen tonight, we can obviously wait till the next meeting, but every time we wait is just.
Can you find out the lead time on it, and let us know? I mean, if we're meeting again,
I would lean towards getting a handle on level 1, item 1, the overall budget, and, maybe we get to a point where we say, we can go beyond the 127, let's go up to 175. I don't know, that's probably not realistic, but I would feel a lot more comfortable making that large of a financial decision with a better handle on the overall place myself.
Okay.
So maybe if we have the numbers by the December 8 meeting, we can tell you, go on this, is what everybody was thinking?
If not, next week.
if not next week.
We can't vote if it's a work
So we
session.
can't vote next week.
No, let's just,
But if we know by then and we can,
Discuss it at least.
yeah,
Right.
and then on the 8th meeting, then we
I
can
mean,
just make it
what
official.
exactly on the numbers are we, I mean, Carmen's gonna bring this packet of finances back, and then, so what are we unsure on?
so, like, the things that I am looking for myself are I guess, little better idea on exactly what our existing cash availability is. And then how much of the pool and park projects can be reallocated that are currently placeholders? How much of all of this do we have to be sure to set aside for staffing needs and maintenance upgrades? How much of it can we look at allocating in just a lump sum now? Is, like, looking at the tax revenue, it's increased the last 2 years. Do we expect that to keep going? There's a lot of factors that play into that.
I think, just to chime in here, I think general, look at, you do have some funds available now. The concern is you don't have annual revenue sufficient to cover your operating expense.
That's what I'm saying. How much of these funds do we have to save back
Right.
to cover
Right.
that long term?
And so, yeah, so I think that's definitely something that you guys need to be aware of and have a handle on, because, like I said, it's every year you're gonna just, it's a downward spiral here, so you wanna make sure that you're aware of that and
Yeah,
understand
and that's a big, how much of this, you look at some of these numbers and it looks like we've got lots of money available.
that. Right,
But when we say this has gotta cover staffing for the next 25 years, no, we don't.
right,
So exactly what that net looks like
sure.
is.
And that was what was concerning to me when we were talking about real estate and things like that as well, is I feel like until we get a real good grasp on all the final construction stuff at the park, and even, I feel like we, I don't know, there's people in the community that think we are in the midst of putting the playground back. So every time we are like, oh no, well, we're still kicking that around. I just feel like $80,000 in the big, long term.
If you look at, that could be outfield fences on those fourth and fifth fields.
Oh,
plus
absolutely, we can
dugouts.
spend it all
I mean,
kinds of places, but.
There's a lot of, so all of that stuff plays into, the budget status for the long and short-term projects. If we commit 80 or 127 right now, then it's committed, we can't look at elsewhere. So just having the overall handle on exactly what the dollar amounts are, what the spending options are, given those dollar amounts, what the priorities are, and then start to allocate and spend stuff.
But we need to put something there though.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a definite consensus that we do intend to put something back there.
So like your priority list of where we need to look at spending money first, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then how much are each one of those gonna cost, and then what do we have available to do all that?
And maybe we don't get 1, 2, and 3, maybe we get 1, 3, and 4 for dollar amount reasons, or
Right.
we get 2, 3, 4, 5, or we get only 1, or.
And then take care of that before
Right,
we start
and
moving on to
that's
other
where,
things.
that's what worries me, is so many times in the past, we
Yeah.
just built new, and we don't have the money to maintain what we have.
Right.
And I don't want a black eye of, we build a, multi-million-dollar complex, and 10 years from now, it looks shabby,
No.
because we don't have the resources and manpower to take care of it.
And that needs to be straight off the top, how much do we need to hold back?
So that's where when
To
we
ensure that.
talk about, all these other, like, what can we build and add, it makes me nervous, and the only reason I bring up the playground thing is because that is something that we've had a significant amount of councils talked about it. We've had people come to the meetings and talk about it in the school district. Maybe I guess if the school is really concerned, they can help us finance it, maybe, I don't know, but.
Somebody told me there was like a conservation grant for playgrounds, is that right? I don't remember who told me that. I don't know.
Land and Water Conservation Fund, LWCF.
I don't think it was that one.
That's probably what it is.
I don't know. Somebody's mentioned that to me, I was like, I don't know if it's the same one they meant or not. And I was like,
I think that's priority, we need to get equipment replaced, that's what the community wants. And then
McVickers,
restrooms.
has that been discussed with them at all? I know at one time he was talking about you know, their organization possibly putting something for the playground. And I don't know if that, is
I
that the
think they
new
would be
park
more,
or?
I think they would be more interested in something that's fully inclusive.
Fully inclusive,
Right.
probably the new one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just something to keep in mind, I guess,
Right, right.
too, with part of our planning, maybe.
You know, they contributed to New Station pretty heavily, and
Right. And he had interest in that still. I know when we were talking about the new park and everything, I talked to him a few times about it. So,
We're good about going in circles.
I was gonna say, we need to make decisions.
So I think we need to say that next meeting, we're gonna go over these two topics, and we're gonna come up with an idea on these two things. And then the next meeting, we'll hit the next two, but at this point, it's gotta be budget, and it's gotta be
We gotta get stuff done.
the LWCF stuff.
Yeah, I mean, assuming there's no outstanding questions coming from that meeting.
This is just, we're going on way too long, we're just dragging our feet on too much stuff, and we're not making decisions. And it's a daunting list when you look at it, but we've got to prioritize it and go from there.
We've been trying to build a pool for 10 years, I mean, this has been happening for a while.
and I think
We
once
know
there's
what's
finance
happening.
information, and we know where our budget is.
So I think that needs to be our first
Right.
priority,
Yeah.
because we've got to set the budget next.
Right,
And
so we
just
make
know
sure we
what
have
want
enough for
to do.
staffing and everything else, we know what we have available to spend on these items.
Make
Matt-
decisions.
Matt, when are you meeting with Carmen?
Wednesday sometime. We didn't set a time, I was gonna reach out Tuesday, and I just put on Wednesday as the place.
Who else is available that day? We'll just all meet with Carmen and have a big powwow in her office. We would love that.
I wouldn't mind doing a meeting up there than you do. I have a little bit of a financial background, if you're all right with that.
I don't
Say
care,
anything, but you know.
everyone, as far as I'm concerned, everyone is welcome to
Yeah,
do it.
that's what I really do right now, actually.
On what day?
Wednesday. I
Is
don't
your
have a
phone
time set.
ringing? Cause I think she's calling you to say stuff.
Yeah, I have a lot more flexibility during the day than I think a lot of people do with work, so I didn't wanna say, hey, we're all meeting at
Yeah,
3.
I gotta work. I don't work.
Well, I'd say anybody who has interest to meet with Carmen, it'd be probably better for her too, to kind of go through it one time.
I would like to, just let me know what time it is. I mean, I would like to understand it better myself, just looking at, I just don't know if I can get out of work.
And hopefully she'll be able to learn me on it well enough that I'll be able to answer those questions and bring everybody else up to speed as needed. So yeah,
If it's set around midday, I can be there, like the 11 to like 1
okay.
time period. I know it's not a great time period, it's over lunch, but anytime then, perfect.
Okay, I'll reach back out to her and maybe we'll just get a time on the calendar sooner rather than
Really,
later.
anytime 10 to 1, I'd be fine, if you want me there.
Carmen usually takes a later lunch, so that'll work fine.
I just had
I'm not speaking for Carmen in case she's listening, but I'm just saying that typically she takes a lunch usually 1 o'clock or so that would probably work 11 or 12 or something.
Okay. I'll reach back out to her and,
I didn't want you to be the only one she killed.
Right.
To really plan for the budget, we kind of need to know the staffing needs, right? I mean,
that's
Cause that's
all
where I'm
of
kind of
them.
looking at is,
all of these come in, yeah, that's something that has to come off the top before we look at
Right.
any of the other
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Maintenance costs has to come off the top before we look at any of the other stuff.
Can you get us some kind of idea on a rough number on these programs, the software for them?
Yeah, oh yeah, I will have that by the next meeting.
Even if it's like 10 or
I just-
20,000, just something, so we
Yeah,
have
so
I didn't
know.
wanna go too far into that because I know
Understand.
the city managers talked about bidding that. And I do think that ultimately might be the way we go, but I just don't think we have time. Just getting this pool bid out and knowing the time frame. I mean, we advertise that pool bid next week, we won't have we won't be able to hire a company until February with the way the
Right.
meetings fall and all those things, so.
If you do have a demo, would you get me on that with the computer background?
I'm hoping that I can share with everybody that kind of like all the other software stuff we've got demos on. Whoever wants to be involved, at least to mess with it and look around. And
Oh, so you're thinking it's gonna be like an interactive, like we get an advanced, a trial shot?
yeah,
Okay.
I think so. I I actually got an email from one of them just today, asking about it, cause, you know, I'm getting,
Are these companies you've reached out to, or have they found you?
no, I reached out to them.
Okay. I would expect some amount of, hey, look, they just built a new park, let's reach out and try to get their business, sort
Right,
of thing.
yeah.
All right, yeah, and identifying which of the expenditures are mandatory and have to come out of the top, that's gonna be number one. And Steve, would you be able to put together a recommendation for a number of staff, like what you'd like to see?
What I'd like to see.
What
What
you
you
need,
need,
what
what
you
you
need.
needed, what you needed, not what you want.
Yeah.
Say what you'd like to see and what's the absolute
Right.
minimum you can operate with.
Minimum and max.
We'll end up somewhere in the middle.
Full-time,
Um,
seasonal.
And ideally, the staff that's dedicated directly to the park, a good chunk of that expense will hopefully be offset by revenue from the park. And, you know, that's not gonna be, the same as the pool, it's still a net outlay, but it's, you know, it's 60,000 instead of 170,000.
That's one of the advantages of us trying to run our own programming to some degree, but either way, we can offset the cost by scheduling out other entities as well, so, but, I mean, if we're running our own rec. Is that the direction we decided we were gonna go?
That's what you wanted to do.
Okay, all right. Okay.
You regret that yet?
Oh. And,
I think that's a
Did
good
we
place
really
for
say
us to
that out
be.
loud? Yes,
Right.
we did say that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we need to set the precedent of this is what, yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
When I say we, I mean you.
Just to at least bring up the last item there on level 2, the 88 trail at Sunrise Lake. We talked a little bit about it last week. Steve and I had a 45-minute long Zoom this morning looking at maps and verifying routes and all of that. This morning on the me donating match side of things. So that's a project that was already in the works before Park Board came on board at the reservoirs. Does anyone want additional information right now, or just continue with it, basically the direction it was already going, and let that see through to completion?
I'm fine with the way it's headed.
Yeah, I am too.
I mean, basically, it's gonna snake up through there and end, and then look to extend to eventual completion from there.
At some point, we would connect the dots.
That's
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Incrementally, right?
Might take you.
I think the lines have gotten shorter each time,
Yes.
each step,
No?
but it's getting closer. So we're actually starting to talk about what connecting those dots looks like, as opposed to just getting farther around the lake at this point.
Yeah, I believe after this next section, it'll be connecting the dots.
It'll be at most 2 more to get it,
Yeah,
at most.
My only concern is cost and where all that falls into.
That's
Just,
Carmen's printing press.
So that's something Steve and I talked about a little bit this morning also. My personal kind of working expectation on cost for that trail specifically is we would look to ask for funding from council to finish that project specifically. That's always been, you know, that the finances at the reservoirs were the reason that previous park board had declined anything out there anyway. We don't have in our budget the money to finish that. You know, if we try to do that, we're stopping everything else everywhere else. So I would suggest that we approach that with council and make sure that they are of the same understanding and opinion, and everybody's thinking the same on that, so that it's not, we have this expectation, they have some different expectation. Becky, is there anything you want to speak to on that?
You were talking about the
The 88 trail, the big trail. I think you were otherwise occupied while I was talking there.
As far as I'm concerned, I may be the only council that feels this way, I don't know, I don't think I am, but we'd like to follow you guys on that when it comes to what you wanna do with that and when.
Do you, I guess, do you have a feeling, and I know you're one of the five, but do you have a feeling if the council would be open to the bulk of the remaining financing likely coming from council as opposed to from park board budgets?
Well, yeah, I think we would be open to that, but seriously, as you've heard a lot, this building is a kind of a top priority, so I don't know when that would be. But yes, I think the city should help with that, and I think we would like to, when I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I think it makes sense to have a full board and full council
And even maybe.
understanding on the direction that we're looking to go, whether it's a partial or we have a plan and we request the funding, or, you know, what exactly that looks like, just so that we
Either
know
that or
what it.
grant.
I mean, I think the grants are a given that we have to,
Yeah, we're gonna apply for the RTP grants, that's the thing,
and that's the grant that was specifically, like, to me, it goes to that project until it's done.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was like, we just talked about all that, we can't, pay
No,
for
I
this
don't-
too.
I don't expect you guys to even.
No, but keep in mind, just like the LWCF, we have to front the money, and then it's reimbursable, so
Yeah.
you gotta have the money up front to at least do the project, and then once it's complete and they sign off, then we'll get reimbursed, but
That can take some time too.
So what's the best avenue to gaining that consensus with the council on what the long-term plan out there is with respect to funding that specific trail?
I think the city manager has spoken to putting the last portion out for like RFQ to get some engineering.
Some design on it?
Some design on it, and then
Just
that
in,
way,
just in case if there was some additional grant funding fall from the sky, we would have essentially a shovel-ready project to say,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Here.
So how much does that cost? Sorry.
that's
It's
what
gonna
we're
be
looking
coming in
at.
our budget.
Yeah, it's gonna cost
More than
thousands of dollars.
More than $10, less than 500 million.
Mhm. Yeah,
Over
I mean-
$10,000s of dollars.
Yep.
Ouch.
So looking at that project, shoot, year and a half, 2 years ago, I reached out, originally when I brought it up, I was joking, and then actually looked into it, and it started to look feasible. I brought up the idea of the boardwalk directly across the lake. So I reached out to a couple companies just to see if the generic pricing I was finding online were in the range. And they all, in order to give firm numbers, they needed a geotech study of the soils, because, you know, what the underlying soils look like dictate what kind of structures they have to put in. So I think it makes a lot of sense to, at the very least, have that done. Zach, do you have any idea on what a geotech would cost?
No, I have never done one in the middle of a lake before.
Only part of it's gonna be in the middle.
Yeah, you're probably 50 to 20,000 probably
That's not that bad.
for that. I mean, I'm just thinking,
But that's gonna have to happen for that project to go forward
yeah,
anyway.
probably.
Didn't we have to do something like that for that very tall water tower over by Sturtsville?
Yeah, I was thinking the last geotech report we've done, was the industrial park, and like I said, I think it was like $8,000. Again, that's a larger area, so you might be able to do it for less than 15, but
No,
I
I would
think
be
it's
interested in that.
it's pretty safe.
So that, I guess that's the general direction out there and the long-term plan.
Yeah, and I think, again, that was part of the reason why getting an engineer, basically getting design, and again, saying, here are the expenses that you're going to incur to get this, and again, just trying to be prepared.
And basically, the three options for completion, so going through this section where the blue makes this little S curve, immediately south of the end of the lake. I pulled up a 1957 aerial, and as of the lake was very, very low, so you can see the lack of contour up at that end. And all of that forest, basically all of the creek bottom that we'll have to go to was lake bed as of 1957. So the three options for getting through that are a standard earthen trail, which will likely require significant over excavation, backfill, and I don't have any idea what that would cost, and whether it would be even allowed, assuming those are gonna be wetland soils, or elevated boardwalk. The two options there are a wooden structure or a concrete, precast concrete. And, you know, there's varying prices accordingly. As of 2 years ago, in order to finish the full outer loop, plus a span directly across the lake to give us a figure 8, as of 2 years ago, with, you know, making assumptions about the geotech, it was, I wanna say $350,000 for a wooden structure versus around $1.3 million for a concrete structure with a 75-year lifespan that's capable of carrying ambulances and vehicle emergency vehicles.
So phase 3 is basically like, it's getting close to being done. We're about ready to start that?
It's ready.
It's about to be
We're
started.
gonna do the final layout and begin clearing next week.
And
That
then
blue section on that. No, the other map is phase 3.
That's phase 3,
That's
right?
phase
And then
3.
this is-
Essentially, that's phase 4, maybe phase 5, 4 and 5. That's just, like Matt was saying, it's either,
Across.
we applied for phase 4 to be from the trailhead, all the hard surface you can get, before we need to either,
This first lake from the south up until it makes this hard corner sideways, all of that upland was the application this
Right.
past.
phases. It probably really depends on funding and,
Okay.
because this last section is going to be the most expensive.
There's a reason why it's the last.
So this map right now is concept.
Okay, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Is that emergency access coming up?
That is
Yeah.
not intended to be a public trailhead as of now, at least that was my understanding as of
No.
previously.
Connie
That's gonna
Ledner
be like
will not
maintenance
approve
access.
of that.
What's that?
Connie Ledner would not approve of that, that's for sure.
Okay,
That's,
so,
No, that's just for equipment and emergency, that's not part of the trail. That'll
And
cover
that'll-
all.
that's what I was wondering.
That'll have a lock gate on it right there.
But yeah, you'll be able to have emergency access there, but
Right.
Yeah.
Is that her place?
Yes. She's voicing her concerns already about the trail. We'll make it right.
Yeah, so that marks off the level 2. Is there any desire to dive into the level 3 tonight?
No. Anybody like points?
I mean,
That's why it's level 3.
Answers to the above.
I feel like, yeah, there's so much that has to happen up there before we can move
Right.
on to these. Again, those just kind of fall into place once we figure out those bigger.
The only thing with the level 3 might be the park side, but.
That will have more of a timeline on it.
Right, we will need something in the new park, whether it be what we wanna make all the parks look like, or its own individual thing, but we can definitely talk to that.
Sheet of plywood and a can of spray paint, and there you go.
Perfect.
I don't know, that was expensive too, so maybe a sheet.
Oh, boy.
So yeah, we can't do that yet.
All right, any other discussion on those items for right now? So Steve, you'll follow up with a date,
For
time,
next
and
week.
place for next week?
Yep, and then we'll shoot for Wednesday, 6 PM there moving forward.
Any miscellaneous?
Steve, I think I sent this in an email. Do you know, like on those shade structures at the pool, are they recommended to come down, or are they
We've decided,
not?
no, because of,
No.
we're gonna do more damage to them ultimately, getting them down and back up. We got some UV protectant, application we'll put on it.
Only reason I asked
They're
about it
gonna
is
be
they
wear
have
items, and they are going to, they're
to
gonna
be
be
replaced eventually.
But I honestly think the more, as tight as they are, and the more times we take them down and put them back up, and then we store them off-site, they'll kind of dry rot, and, you know, and we don't have any good storage for that kind of stuff.
Okay. I never really thought about it, like I say, I had just went down, I was meeting a guy doing some keys, and they were taking theirs down there at Excelsior at their
They could be stored just in the
Flash.
pad bathhouse, right?
We could, but if you fold them up, then there's more of a chance of rot than you almost have to lay them out. I don't know, recommendation from Carruthers was just to leave them.
leave.
That was
Okay,
the recommendation.
that's what I was curious, I was like, what are they, I don't know anything about them, but I just saw that happening, and I was like, that's interesting, I don't know.
And there's some spray-on protectant.
I think the one at Sunrise Lake.
That's, I was just
That-
gonna ask about
That one was supposed to come down, but after we got it up, it ain't coming down. You know what it is, Mother Nature will take care of it when it comes down.
Or replace it when
Yeah,
it,
they ripped it
wear
a
out.
little bit trying to.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
It
Yeah.
was
Oh, awful.
like multiple times the
Yeah,
wrong size provided.
And I think they had the wrong size the first time, and it didn't.
They tried to stretch it farther
The
than
guy's
they
like,
were willing to
just
stretch.
pull this stretch, and well, we didn't want it ripped, and they sent another one, did the same thing, so. Yeah, so we said, no, we're just leaving it.
That was my only question.
Any other miscellaneous? Alright, I will send out confirm that Carmen doesn't mind a crowd and send out a date and time as soon as I have that for anybody that would like to come and join that discussion. Beyond that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.